We got to start right here at home in our own backyard where a QB controversy is brewing, Moose, and that is with the New York Jets.
Yeah.
And I get what the Jets are trying to do here. I understand what Robert Saleh is trying to do. They're laying the groundwork for Zach Wilson to retake the starter's job from Mike White.
Their guy.
And that's their guy. And I totally understand why they would go down that road. The one problem is that I don't actually believe anything Robert Saleh is saying, except for that one small fact. They can talk till they're blue in the face, green in the face, whatever you want to say. I just don't believe anything they're saying. And here's what I'm talking about. Saleh said yesterday that there is no rush to bring back Zach Wilson. However, he said if he is fully healthy, he will start this Sunday against the Bills. I don't believe that. There's no reason to rush him back, and I don't believe they want Zach Wilson to play this weekend against Buffalo, not because the opponent, just again, to make sure things are absolutely right with the knee, and because this Mike White thing has become a story. And here's where I'll go a step further. If Mike White and the Jets somehow upset the Buffalo Bills this weekend, and I don't want to hear that that's not a possibility. I don't
13.5-point dog.
I don't care what the
At
spread
home.
says. What was the spread
At
against
MetLife.
Jacksonville? It was bigger.
14.5.
I don't think that the Bills have hit rock
Jets
bottom
are right there
yet.
with the Jags.
And believe me, guys, I know a little about this Bills team. They have not hit rock bottom yet. This is a team that is floundering offensively. If there is ever a time to catch Buffalo, this is the time. This is not a reverse jinx. I'm being open and honest with you. This is the time to catch them. Catching them at home. You cannot tell me that an upset is totally off the table here. And this is where I'll go a step further with Saleh. If somehow Mike White and the Jets upset the Bills, Zach Wilson isn't starting the next week either. Even if he's fully healthy, Moose, he's not starting against the Miami Dolphins. Like, book it. He will not start.
All right, who's their guy?
Their guy is Zach Wilson.
So their guy is healthy, shouldn't their guy start?
Their guy is going to have plenty of time to get back into the starter's role this season. I'm talking about the micro here. I'm talking about what's going to happen for this week and maybe the next week. 30,000-foot view. What's the one thing that the Jets have to avoid with this whole quarterback situation? The one thing they have to avoid is that Mike White and Zach Wilson are not competing for the quarterback job in 2022.
Yes.
That's all they have to avoid. How we get there can play out 1,000,001 different ways. I'm talking about this week. If Mike White and they beat the Bills, I guarantee Mike White will start against the Miami Dolphins.
All right, so then why not clamor for Josh Johnson, who threw for over 300 yards against the
'Cause they
Indianapolis
lost.
Colts?
They lost badly.
But he's looked better than Zach Wilson in that offense.
It's got to be a W.
Oh, so it's got to be a W.
It's got to be a W.
How
If
it looks.
he wins, he will start against the Dolphins.
He gets outdueled by Josh Allen. They lose a game. They lose. That Mike White, that ends that day.
I think then you can go back to Zach Wilson. It's a much easier sell, and it's so much cleaner.
Well, how is it not? But right now, is it not clean? If Wilson's
not clean
healthy,
right now.
Well, White got hurt. You got your doors blown off. You've had some extra time here. You're in your third week, as Saleh said yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Is it now the time? I mean, is the Mike White, is people kind of gotten over it to an extent? It's not as feverish as it was a week ago.
Have you talked to Jets fans out there? They can't wait for this guy to get back on the field.
It's not as feverish as it was a week ago.
Just because they've had a couple day offs, they get a little mini
We had a
bye.
Mike White Monday last week.
Yeah, I know. We'll have another one if they beat the Bills.
But Saleh and the Jets, they're not invested in Mike White. They're invested in Zach Wilson.
Okay, but here's the thing. It can be a win-win here for the Jets if they don't foobar this thing. It can be a win-win in that Zach Wilson is definitely going to be their guy moving forward, all that I believe. But it doesn't mean you might not have stumbled upon an asset here. You know, is it so out of the realm of possibility that Mike has a couple more starts or looks okay, and you could find somebody at the end of the season who's willing to trade for Mike White and maybe give you a draft pick? Listen, I criticize Joe Douglas about a lot of stuff. His return on trading guys has been like chef's kiss.
He's been great with that. Now, do you believe guys should lose jobs due to injury?
I kind of think that it's just sort of dog eat dog. I really do. And Zach Wilson didn't really he didn't really leave no doubt. He struggled.
But he's the starter.
He
is the starter. He gets
starter.
hurt.
I don't think all of those situations are the same. And I don't think as a steadfast rule, like if you are the starter, you must get your job back. I mean, look at the famous example. There's been a few, but one famous one was the San Francisco 49ers. Alex Smith gets hurt. Colin Kaepernick goes in. They end up going to the Super Bowl. Now, granted, they lost to the Ravens, but they go to the Super Bowl. Like, that's a decision you'd make 10 times out of 10.
Right, and he didn't go back to Alex Smith. You're right about that, and you look at Colin Kaepernick. See, I think what Robert Saleh, the interesting thing was the messaging has changed.
Yes.
After the White game against Cincinnati, when asked about the starter's job, he basically said anything's possible. Yesterday, whether he starts this week or not, did you not see an organizational change to where who really is the quarterback of the Jets?
And I think that had everything to do with how it looked against the Colts, because he got knocked out of the game, because they lost. I mean, listen, let's all be honest with ourselves. We watched that game. The defense was so bad that if the defense plays like that against Buffalo, then QB controversy is going to be the last of their problems. If the defense is going to allow that kind of production, like, you're just going to lose, and it's not going to matter even who your quarterback is.
Well, my question, Maggie, would be
but
this.
If he played well against the Colts, and if that was like a close game, or Mike White had another, like, hey, vintage Mike White game, then I think that the rhetoric is still a little more opaque.
Right, or if it looks a lot different. If it's not 45-10 before you score, and make it a 45-30 final, if it's like, 35-27, they end up scoring a touchdown late to lengthen out the lead. You kick something like that, where it's a lot closer, a lot more nip and tuck than that game basically being over very, very early as the Jets defense couldn't stop anybody. I guess I look at it, Maggie, and I understand where you're coming from, but where is the entry point? Like, you're mentioning that it's just wins or losses, because I would make the argument it's still going to be messy next week if Mike White plays well. Like, there's really no, like, if you can't tell me there would be a clean entry point. Like, the cleanest entry point would be the Buffalo Bills come to town, they win the game 42-10.
Right.
White gets exposed, throws 3 picks,
go back
terrible.
To Wilson.
You go right back to Wilson. But like I mentioned, what about if it looks good with White offensively, and it's still the defense that is the issue? They can't stop Josh Allen. Allen has a get-right game against this Jet defense after getting embarrassed by the Jacksonville Jaguars, but Mike White gets out-dueled by a guy that could have been the MVP of the league.
Yep.
Can you really then say we're going to Zach Wilson after that kind of performance?
First of all, I think that Josh Allen lost his MVP. The whole candidacy went up in smoke because of that Jacksonville game. But
I'm talking about last year.
I get your point. I think that you can have a much easier sell to the fan base if you lose the game and you say, listen, guys, like, we love, and Saleh said it yesterday, we all should appreciate the sort of what's going on with Mike White and how this has sort of changed, maybe have changed his life and all of that stuff. If he continues to play well, he could play in this league and maybe get some job security or something somewhere else. But I think that it's easier to sell the fan base, say, like, guys, listen, ladies, gents, the only way we get to where we really want to go is if Zach gets snaps. And I think coming off of a loss where maybe, however Mike plays, but if you're coming off of a loss, it makes it a lot easier to sell and say, guys, we got to keep our eye on the prize here, which is developing Zach. We're going back to Zach. You cannot do that off of a win.
No.
Cannot.
No,
and that's why I'm going to call Saleh's bluff on that.
Right, and I understand. I guess my thing would be it'd be difficult to do if he plays well and you lose the game, because Jet fans are going to say he's looked a lot better than Wilson has ever looked at the quarterback position playing in this offense, especially if he's able to throw the ball down the field instead of the dink and dunk offense that they had against the Cincinnati Bengals, which is something that a lot of people look at and say, well, those were easy passes because he just allowed his receivers to go make plays. Let's see when they take that away what kind of quarterback Mike White is. Yeah, I think the Jets are in the midst of it. The Jets are there. Like, you talk about quarterback controversy, it is upon us. And what Saleh had to say, interesting enough, yesterday, where I thought, listen, the White story is great. You can appreciate the story. The Jets are in the Zach Wilson business.
Yes, but I'm going to say something here that goes totally against my nature. Okay? Are you ready? Like, if you've been listening to the show for a long time, this is going to sound so counterintuitive to anything that I've ever said.
Gonna be positive?
But I'm going to... No, Moose, come on. What are you, insane? That's blasphemy that you'd even think that I would attempt that. No, this is what I'm going to say. I'm going to say this. I think that there is always the front office and the organization should always be the ones playing chess instead of checkers. This is one of these times I think you can just sort of dumb it down. I think you can just sort of play checkers here and not have to play chess and worry about and what if this and what if that and this move and that move and looking 4 moves down the board to figure out how you're going to end up with Zach Wilson back as the starter. I don't think you need to. I think you can play this one sort of week by week and you're going to still end up again. You just have to avoid one thing, which is White and Wilson competing for a job next training camp 2022. Either you develop an asset in Mike White and you can trade him, or you go back to Zach Wilson. I think you can just play checkers here. I don't think you have to play chess.
Hamilton, New Jersey, chess, checkers, Jets, Wilson, White. We want to hear from you. Jack, you're first up here on this Tuesday midday. What's going on, Jack?
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Hey,
Jack, how you doing, buddy?
Hi. I would think of this situation from a lot of angles, and like a lot of people said last week, I don't think it's necessarily a bad problem for the Jets to have. Mm-hmm. First of all, they have an established backup now, or Zach Wilson can sit back and not get his head, blown in
right.
until they, can use some draft picks next year and hopefully solidify the offensive line so he can get protection and can get more weapons, actually, have a chance here. I think maybe they're building up his stock to trade him in the offseason, Mike White. I do think it's
Could
interesting
be a byproduct.
to see him.
Yep.
Yeah, I do think it's interesting to watch him. You know what I mean? Like a guy coming out of nowhere, and it's a great story and everything. I'm cheering for him. I don't look at it as it's a bad thing. I just think that it could be a good thing for the Jets to have Zach Wilson sit back and kind of watch from the sidelines a little bit, kind of like Pat Mahomes or,
Yeah, but the difference is, you bring up those examples. Patrick Mahomes was learning from Alex Smith, right? A little different than Zach Wilson learning from Mike White. Aaron Rodgers, even though the relationship was not great, it was Brett Favre, right? Steve Young, Joe Montana. You go through these backup quarterbacks and say guys that waited and finally got their opportunity or, sat back, relaxed. Well, you have to have that guy in front of them. Especially that's what we were talking about, the veteran quarterback before the start of the year. I think the interesting thing, other than, where's the entry point here for Wilson, and the Jets made it clear yesterday about them being in the Zach Wilson business and not the Mike White business, is, where do you get to a point where, okay, you make Mike White a draft commodity or a commodity that you could trade in the offseason? Well, Wilson's also got to show you that he can play the position as well. You can't trade. That's where, if I were Joe Douglas and the Jets, and I know you don't want to get into a quarterback competition in 2022, but Zach Wilson, the reason why Jet fans are so excited about Mike White is because he actually looked good at the quarterback position. And you have not seen Wilson look particularly good in this offense, taking what the defense has given you, the decision-making on the field. It has not looked the part. Wilson, at some point in time, has got to show some progress in this offense as a quarterback.
I agree with you. However, do not underestimate the amount of, I don't want to just say ego involved in this, but what it would actually take for them to move off of Zach Wilson. That just is not going to come easily here. Second overall pick, not just the amount of draft capital that they've invested in him, but the actual capital, the actual money they've already paid to this guy. They want that ROI. Yeah. And you can say, well, you could just trade Zach Wilson. I could not see that happening after one season. Even if he never gets on the field again the rest of the year, I still think Mike White's out, Wilson's in.
Yeah, I don't think they'd ever move on from Wilson.
Yeah.
My point would be, I'm not going to move on from White.
As your just sort of safety net there.
As I'm trying to find out exactly what Wilson is as a quarterback.
Yeah, but I feel like you can get another backup quarterback,
Well, I know you can get another backup. I got to know my starter can actually do the job as well.
That's what we're all here to find out, right?
Valley Stream
Just going to have to wait another week.
Hey, guys, I got a hypothetical question for you.
Yes.
So the Jets have a playoff game this Sunday. By some miracle, they got a playoff game. Pigs are flying. The world is burning.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you
Pigs
need
are
to
getting
pick from
slapped.
these 4 Jets quarterbacks, recent and present. You got to start a quarterback for this playoff game. Mike White, Zach Wilson, Sam Darnold, or Teddy Bridgewater. Who do you want starting that game?
Johnson. That is.
Hey, it was Wilson,
White,
Sam Darnold, and Teddy Bridgewater. It'd be
Correct.
Bridgewater.
Bridgewater was barely here. Yeah, it would be Bridgewater. Bridgewater or White.
Yeah, Bridgewater or White.
then it's like really they can arm wrestle between Darnold and
Honestly,
and
you can't
Zach
start,
Wilson.
you can't start Sam Darnold. I don't know. Is Carolina going to start him next week?
I don't know. What was the results of the MRI on his shoulder?
The MRI is a plane ticket out of town. I don't know.
Scranton, we go, Rich.
If it was up to Robbie Anderson, I feel like Sam Darnold would get thrown in the ocean.
Takes a lot to get Robbie upset. Well, maybe not so much. Yeah, Richie, what's going on, buddy?
Hey, I agree with you guys, both of you guys, but Moose, I think you're right on though, because what happens if Mike White is better than what we think he is? And
Yeah.
Zach Wilson does have a lot of learning to do, and if you get rid of Mike White, really, what are you going to replace him with? Because we're still hoping Mike White might be better than what we think he is, and he's only getting $800,000 a year now. Who could you replace him with if he's that good? You might make a big mistake. And with Zach Wilson, I'm hoping he's good. But, I mean, his college tapes look good, but he did a lot of bombing away in college, and he was great. And what you were saying about Mike White, what about if they take the short game away from him? Maybe to leave receivers open because Davis comes back and we could see better long ball from Mike White. And if he does perform at that level, then we're really in a catch-22. Do you really want to get rid of Mike White? And do you really want to waste Zach Wilson getting beat up on the field now because he's still learning the game? I just think let Mike White play it out until somehow if he implodes, but if he keeps consistent, you have to keep him.
See, I listen, Rich. I just don't think you do. I think that this entire franchise was all on board with Zach Wilson. And I'm not saying that he doesn't have some element of bust potential in him. I'm sure we've seen number 1 overall picks that have been busts. That has nothing to do with it. But they're not going to give up on him yet. I think they're looking at like the Matt Castle situation in New England. Brady gets hurt. Castle plays, right? They end up working out a sign and trade with the Kansas City Chiefs. They get the 34th overall pick the next year for Matt Castle.
Right, they did
Cha-ching.
win. Right, they did win a lot of games that year, though. They
Because
missed
they
the
had a better
playoffs.
team.
Right, they missed the playoffs.
But they won like 10 games that year, didn't they?
Yeah, that was the year Brady tore his ACL. First game against Kansas City Chiefs that led to the change in the rule where you can't go low on a quarterback. Yeah, I mean, we're a ways away from it being kind of a Matt Castle type of return for Mike
You'd
White.
hope.
Yeah, you'd hope, but also, Zach Wilson's not Tom Brady. He's not established of what Brady is as a quarterback. So there's that discernible difference because the Patriots were very comfortable trading away Matt Castle because they have the greatest quarterback of all time in Brady.
I get it, but there's going to be an element that comes down if this scenario actually plays out, where the Jets are going to have to make a decision, which is sell high on somebody that we never saw coming, maybe, or is totally sort of created this value that we didn't even see was there. And that, I think, would be so appealing to the front office more than giving up on Zach Wilson. Like, they're all staking everything on Zach being the guy. They're not going to abandon that after a season.
Want to hear from you. Does it need to be a Mike White Day Sunday, regardless of Wilson's health, against the Buffalo Bills? 877-337-6666.